Are you new to SSH key-based authentication? Well, you came to the right place. In this video, I will tell you why to use SSH key-based authentication, what types of keys there are, how to generate one, and how to load it to the remote server. Make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more content. Okay, so let's get started. My name is Philip, and today we'll be kicking off a new series of Linux tips for beginners. SSH, Secure Shell, that you use daily to access your servers remotely, supports various authentication methods. One of the most important and commonly used is the public key authentication. The main point of using public key authentication over simple password is security. There are a few reasons behind it. First, the user has to remember the password, so usually the password is pretty short and potentially could be guessed or cracked with a dictionary or brute force attack. Of course, you could have a long password and store it in some kind of password manager, but it's still a password. Secondly, the mechanism to authenticate user with a password is totally different in terms of cryptographic strength versus public key authentication. In other words, even the most complex password won't offer the same level of security as keys. There are 4 supported public key algorithms. RSA. This is the most popular and most widely used algorithm. The key size can be between 1K and 4K, with the default being 3K. It's not recommended to use a key size less than 3K. DSA. This one has fixed length of 1K and is deprecated as of OpenSSH 7.0. Please do not use those. ED25519. That's the newest and fastest algorithm. The key size is 256-bit, so it's much smaller than RSA. But this 256-bit key offers the same level of protection as 3K RSA, and most importantly, it's much faster to compute. My recommendation would be to use ED255 instead of RSA. One additional advantage that it supports is hardware authenticators, like YubiKey. There will be a separate video on how to use that. ECDSA. This is also a new algorithm, improved version of DSA, but the adoption is not that great. So how to generate the SSH key pair? It's pretty easy. You should use SSH keygen command followed by algorithm name and key length. If you do not specify the algorithm name nor the key length, the default is 3K RSA. Let's try that. It will ask you for the location where to store the private key. The default is .ssh hidden folder within the user's home directory. If the directory does not exist, it will be created. Next, you'll be prompted for the password to protect your private key. It's used to unlock the private key. There will be a video how to store the password for the duration of the session, so you don't have to type it every time. For this demo, let's not provide the password. Okay, now the key pair has been created. You can find it in .ssh folder under user's home directory. Let's see how it looks. As you can see, there are 2 files. One is the private key and the other is the public key. Private key cannot be shared with anyone. You need to protect it at all cost. If it gets compromised, then the attacker will be able to access all the remote systems that you can. What is also important are the permissions to private key and also permissions to .ssh folder itself. Most often the reason for key-based authentication not working is wrong permissions to the key files or .ssh folder. Okay, let's quickly generate another key pair with a different algorithm. As you can see, ED255 keys are significantly smaller. Let's take a look inside the public key file. Public key has 3 columns. First column indicates the key type, second column is the actual key, third column is the optional comment. It does not matter. Just to recap, in order to generate a SSH public private key pair, you should use SSH keygen command with key type and key length. If you don't specify those parameters, default RSA 3K is created. Recommendation is to use ED255 key type. Keys are stored in .ssh folder. Private key cannot be shared. It's recommended to protect it with password unless it's used for automation, but that's a different story. In order to use key-based authentication, we need to load our public key to the remote server. There is a dedicated file called authorized keys in the SSH folder of the remote system. You need to put your public key there. Authorized key file can hold multiple keys, one key per line. Loading the key can be done manually or with SSH copy ID command. Let's try the easier option first. You'll be prompted to accept the host key. This is a one-time only operation. Then you'll be asked for the password to the remote system. OK, key has been planted. Let's see how it looks on the remote server. Behind the scenes, the SSH copy ID command will create .ssh folder if it does not exist, create authorized key file within that folder, and add the line with your public key on the remote system. Please mind the permissions to the .ssh folder and authorized key file. If they are incorrect, you won't be able to authenticate. Once this is complete, you should be able to log into the server without using a password. Let's try that. Same process can be also done manually. Let's create .ssh folder and set the right permissions. Now let's create authorized key file and copy-paste our public key. Important thing is to set the right permissions to the file. Let's try connecting. To recap, you need to add your public key to the authorized key file inside a .ssh folder of the remote system you want to access. If the folder or file does not exist, it needs to be created. Please make sure file has proper permissions.